What this 8-year-old boy whispered to his principal will shatter your heart and then piece it back together in the most incredible way. But first you need to know what happened 3 months before graduation day, because what Principal Martinez found in that boy's backpack wasn't just a letter, it was a message that would change everything. And when she read it out loud, the entire auditorium fell silent. Let me take you back to Lincoln Elementary School in Springfield, Ohio. It's May 15th. 3 days before the biggest graduation ceremony in the school's history. Principal Martinez is doing her final walkthrough when she notices something unusual. 8-year-old Tommy Rodriguez hasn't been the same since March. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed it first. The boy who used to raise his hand for every question now sat quietly in the back row. His homework, once perfectly completed, started coming in half finished or not at all. You see, Tommy's world changed forever on March 23rd. That's the day his father, Sergeant Miguel Rodriguez, didn't come home from his second tour in Afghanistan. But here's what nobody knew. Tommy had been carrying a secret. A secret so powerful, so heartbreaking, that when it finally came to light, it would bring an entire community to tears. It was during lunch cleanup when Principal Martinez found it. Tommy had been helping stack chairs when his backpack fell open, papers scattered everywhere, math worksheets, a half-eaten sandwich, and then she saw it, a letter, not just any letter, written in a child's careful handwriting with tear stains still visible on the paper. The envelope was addressed simply to Heaven for my dad. Principal Martinez picked up the letter, her hands trembling. She knew she shouldn't read it, but something stopped her from putting it away. Maybe it was the way Tommy had been acting, maybe it was maternal instinct, or maybe it was fate. But when she opened that letter and read the first line, she realized this wasn't just a child processing grief. This was something else entirely. The letter began, Dear Dad, I know you're in heaven now, but Mom says you can still hear me. I have something really important to tell you, and I need your help. But it was the next paragraph that made Principal Martinez's breath catch in her throat. Dad, I've been saving my allowance money since you left. I have $47. Now I know it's not much, but I want to buy Mom a graduation gift. She's been going to school at night after work. Remember, she's finally graduating from nursing school, and she doesn't think anyone will be there to cheer for her. You see, nobody at school knew Tommy's mother. Maria had been working 2 jobs and going to nursing school at night, trying to build a better life for her son after losing her husband. She'd kept it quiet, not wanting sympathy or special treatment, but the letter continued, and this is where it gets incredible. Dad, I have a plan. I know you can't be at my elementary graduation, and you can't be at Mom's nursing school graduation either. But what if someone could read my letter out loud at my graduation? That way you'll hear it from heaven, and everyone will know how proud I am of Mom. But wait, there's more. The letter wasn't finished. I asked Mrs. Patterson when Mom's graduation is, and she helped me look it up. Dad, it's the same day as my graduation at the exact same time. Mom thinks she has to choose between coming to my graduation or going to her own. She doesn't know I found out. Principal Martinez sat down hard in her chair. This 8-year-old boy had figured out something that the adults in his life had missed. His mother was facing an impossible choice, and he was trying to solve it the only way he knew how. But the final paragraph of that letter, that's what changed everything. Dad, I have one more favor to ask. If someone reads this letter at graduation, could you help me with something else? Could you make sure all the other kids' dads and moms in heaven hear it too? Because I think there might be other kids like me who want their parents to know they're doing okay. Principal Martinez wiped tears from her eyes as she finished reading, but then she noticed something else. In Tommy's backpack, a small notebook filled with names, 23 names to be exact, every child in the school who had lost a parent in the military through illness or in accidents. Tommy had been keeping track. He wanted to honor all of them. That's when Principal Martinez realized this wasn't just about one boy missing his father. This was about a child who wanted to heal an entire community. Principal Martinez made a decision that would go against every protocol, every rule in the book. She picked up her phone and made a call that would change dozens of lives. First she called the local news station, then the community college where Maria was graduating. Then something extraordinary happened. The news director who answered the call, his name was David Chun, and he had lost his own father when he was 9 years old. When he heard Tommy's story, he didn't just want to cover it, he wanted to be part of it. Within hours, David had contacted the community college, the dean, Dr. Sarah Williams was moved to tears. She made an unprecedented decision. They would move Maria's nursing graduation ceremony to the high school auditorium right after the elementary graduation, but that's not even the biggest twist in this story. When David Chun aired a brief story about Tommy's letter that evening, something magical happened. The phones at Lincoln Elementary didn't stop ringing. Parents, grandparents, siblings, and friends of the 23 children on Tommy's list started calling. They all wanted to be there. They wanted to honor not just Tommy's father, but every parent who couldn't be there in person. Mrs. Patterson received over 200 calls that night. The fire department called to volunteer for crowd control. Local restaurants offered to cater a reception. The high school marching band volunteered to play. Even the mayor's office called, but the most incredible call came at 11:47 that night. It was from Colonel James Murphy at the local military base. He had served with Tommy's father in Afghanistan, and he had a surprise that would make this story even more unbelievable. Colonel Murphy didn't just want to attend the graduation, he wanted to present Tommy with something that had been in processing for months, his father's posthumous Purple Heart and Bronze Star medals. But there was more. Miguel Rodriguez had written letters to his son before his final mission, letters that were supposed to be delivered. If something happened to him due to a military bureaucracy mix-up, they had been sitting in a Denver office for 2 months. Colonel Murphy had been personally driving to Springfield to deliver them when he heard Tommy's story on the radio. Those letters Miguel had written, one for every major milestone in Tommy's life. His elementary graduation, his high school graduation, his wedding day. His father had thought of everything, and in the letter meant for elementary school graduation, Miguel had written something that would make everyone in that auditorium believe in miracles. May 18th dawned cloudy and cold, but by 10 a.m., the sun was breaking through. The high school auditorium, which usually held 800 people, somehow accommodated over 1,200. Tommy arrived with his mother, who still had no idea what was about to happen. She thought she was just attending her son's graduation before rushing to her own ceremony across town. But when Maria Rodriguez saw the auditorium packed to capacity, when she saw news cameras and military personnel in dress uniforms, she knew something extraordinary was happening. Principal Martinez took the podium at exactly 2 p.m. The auditorium fell silent. She looked directly at Tommy, sitting in the front row with his graduating class, and began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, graduates, families, and honored guests, today's ceremony is unlike any graduation in our school's 75-year history. Today, we're not just celebrating our third-grade graduates. We're celebrating the power of love, memory, and community. One of our graduates wrote a letter so powerful, so pure, that it brought all of you here today with his permission. I'm going to read it now, not just for him, but for every child who has ever missed a parent who couldn't be here. Principal Martinez opened the letter with shaking hands. Tommy looked up at her, his eyes wide with surprise and hope. His mother grabbed his hand, beginning to understand, and then Principal Martinez began to read. Dear Dad, I know you're in heaven now, but Mom says you can still hear me. As Principal Martinez read each word, something incredible happened. The auditorium filled with over 1,000 people was completely silent. Not a cough, not a whisper, not even the sound of breathing. When she reached the part about Tommy's mother's graduation, Maria Rodriguez covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. She had no idea her 8-year-old son knew about her sacrifice. But when Principal Martinez read the final paragraph about honoring all the children who had lost parents, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the 23 children on Tommy's list stood up. They had been scattered throughout the auditorium with their families, but now they formed a line across the front of the stage, and that's when the biggest surprise of all was revealed. Colonel Murphy stepped forward, carrying not just Miguel's medals and letters, but something else, a flag. Not just any flag, the American flag that had draped Miguel Rodriguez's casket, which had been flown over the Capitol building in his honor. But as he approached Tommy, Colonel Murphy did something unexpected. He stopped and saluted, not just Tommy, but every single child standing at the front of that stage. Then he spoke. These children are the true heroes today. They've shown us that love doesn't end, that memory can heal, and that community means everything. Tommy accepted his father's medals with dignity beyond his years, but when Colonel Murphy handed him the flag, Tommy did something that made every person in that auditorium stand up and cheer. He walked to each of the 22 other children and let them touch the flag. He shared his father's honor with every child who understood his loss at 4 p.m. Something unprecedented happened right there in the high school auditorium. Maria Rodriguez walked across stage to receive her nursing degree. Her son sat in the front row wearing his father's medals, holding his father's flag. The community college dean had driven the entire ceremony to Tommy's school because sometimes the most important graduations happen when families can be together. As Maria accepted her diploma, she looked out at the crowd and saw something beautiful. She saw her community, she saw her future, she saw hope, and in the back of the auditorium, 23 empty chairs had been set up with small American flags, one for each parent who couldn't be there, but whose presence was felt by everyone. Story didn't end there. Within a week, Lincoln Elementary received donations totaling over $200,000 for a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents in military service. Tommy's letter was read at graduations across the country. Military bases from California to Maine began hosting special graduation ceremonies for military families. Maria Rodriguez now works as a pediatric nurse at Springfield Children's Hospital, specializing in helping children cope with loss and trauma. She credits her son with teaching her that healing comes from helping others. Tommy, he's now 15 years old, a sophomore in high school, and volunteers at the local veteran center every weekend. He still writes letters to his father, but now he also helps other children write theirs. The 23 children who stood with Tommy that day, they formed a support group that still meets monthly. They call themselves Tommy's Heroes, though Tommy insists they're all heroes to each other. This story spread across social media, not because it was designed to go viral, but because it touched something universal: the need to be heard, to be remembered, to know that love survives even death. Tommy's letter proved that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest messages that children can teach adults about courage, community, and compassion. Principal Martinez still has Tommy's original letter framed in her office. She says it reminds her every day why she became an educator, not just to teach reading and math, but to help children navigate the complex emotions of growing up. The letter has been translated into 12 languages and shared in schools around the world because grief is universal, but so is the human capacity for love and healing. 5 years later, Lincoln Elementary instituted Angel Day, an annual ceremony where children can honor family members who have passed away. It's become their most attended school event. The high school auditorium, where Tommy's story unfolded, now has a permanent memorial wall with photos of parents, grandparents, and siblings who can't attend their loved ones' graduations in person. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this story is what happened to Tommy's mother's nursing class. Inspired by Maria's story, all 37 graduates chose to specialize in fields that help children and families facing loss. They call themselves the Rodriguez class of 2019, and they've gone on to work in pediatric hospitals, military family support centers, and grief counseling programs across the country. Tommy grew up to understand something that many adults never learn: that sharing our pain doesn't diminish it, it transforms it into something that can help others heal. He still misses his father every single day, but he also knows that his father's legacy lives on in every child who finds courage in Tommy's story, and every parent who attends a graduation because of what happened that day, and every community that comes together to support grieving families. Maria often says that she lost her husband, but she gained an entire community. Tommy lost his father, but he found his purpose, and sometimes that's how healing works, not by forgetting, but by transforming pain into purpose. This story resonates because it reminds us of a simple truth: we're all carrying something: grief, fear, hope, love, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is share what we're carrying with others. Tommy's letter started as a private conversation with his father in heaven, but when it became public, it created a conversation among an entire community about love, loss, and what it means to show up for each other in a world that often feels divided. Tommy's story proved that compassion is contagious, that when one person shows courage, it gives others permission to show theirs too. The children who stood with Tommy that day learned that they weren't alone in their grief. The adults who witnessed it learned that healing happens in community, and everyone who heard the story learned that love really doesn't end, it just finds new ways to express itself. Today, Tommy Rodriguez is planning to become a teacher. He wants to work with children who are facing difficult circumstances, who need someone to believe in them, who need to know that their voices matter. He still has his father's medals and letters. But more importantly, he has his father's legacy of service, not just to country, but to community. When people ask Tommy what he learned from that graduation day, he always gives the same answer. I learned that when you speak from your heart, the whole world listens, and when the whole world listens, amazing things can happen. His father couldn't be there in person for his elementary school graduation, but in a way, because of Tommy's courage to share his heart, his father was present for thousands of graduations that followed. Tommy's story teaches us that we all have letters in our heart's, messages of love, hope, gratitude, and healing that we keep to ourselves, but sometimes sharing those letters can change everything. Maybe you have someone in heaven you wish could hear you. Maybe you know a child who's carrying a heavy burden. Maybe you're part of a community that needs to remember how to show up for each other. Tommy Rodriguez proved that one voice, no matter how small, no matter how young, can move mountains. His letter moved a community, inspired a nation, and continues to heal hearts around the world, because sometimes the most powerful messages come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes heaven really is listening, and sometimes all it takes is one brave soul willing to share their heart with the world. The next time you have something important to say, remember Tommy's story. Remember that your voice matters, your pain can become purpose, and your courage can create miracles. If Tommy's story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love never truly ends, if it inspired you to believe in the power of community and compassion, then smash that like button right now. Share this story with everyone. Parents, teachers, friends, family members, because stories like this need to be heard. They need to spread hope and healing in a world that desperately needs both. And if you want to hear more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in humanity, that will make you believe in miracles, that will remind you of the extraordinary power of ordinary people, then subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, because every week we bring you stories of courage, compassion, and community that will change how you see the world. Stories that prove love wins, hope endures, and heroes come in all ages. In the comments below, tell us, what would you want to say to someone in heaven who in your life deserves to know how much they mean to you? Let's create our own community of healing and hope right here. Until next time. Remember Tommy's lesson: when you speak from your heart, the whole world listens, and when the whole world listens, miracles happen. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tommy's story lives on because people like you help spread it. Be part of the miracle. Be the voice that helps someone else find courage.